Hey guys, welcome to the FitTown show. This is Coach Andrew with Coach Tony and Coach Austin today. And today we're going to be talking about how wearable technology like Whoop and Apple Watch and FitBit can help or potentially hinder your health. And we're really excited about this technology. We think it's something that can really just revolutionize training and healthcare and be a really good force for good. So we want to talk a lot about the pros of it. We want to also talk about some of the downfalls as well, which we've seen that we all have had a Whoop. Tony hasn't been wearing his lately, but Austin and I got ours. None of us have had the Apple Watch, so we're going to talk from a little bit of lack of experience there of stuff we've seen with it. But let's talk about some of the positives. What are some of the advantages? What have you loved about having a Whoop on your hand?
I think for me the biggest thing is actually tracking my sleep. I think I use that aspect of it more than anything, and I actually don't track it in as much detail as I know some people do, like Coach Melissa, but I track it as like how much sleep did I actually get, because before I was like, oh, if I get to bed around this time I'll get generally this much sleep, and if the Whoop has done anything, it showed me that I don't get as much sleep as I originally thought I did. And then kind of showed me the downfalls of what happens if you don't get sleep. So
you're used to kind of rounding up. You're like, yeah, it was roughly 8 p.m.
Exactly, and it was probably 11:30.
Yeah.
It also sends me this annoying little reminder, like, hey, you should get to bed by this time tonight. I'm like, okay, thanks, Mom.
Yeah, just to break down what you're talking about, you basically can choose which habits you track prior to bed. So you could track literally nothing, or you could track, like, maybe you're someone that drinks alcohol from time to time. So you can have your Whoop the next morning when you get up ask you, did you have alcohol? And it will say, how many did you have, how many drinks, and what time was your last drink? So if you just want to track how is my alcohol consumption affecting my sleep, over time it's going to be able to link sleep quality and quantity to those habits based on what you log, and it's going to be able to tell you trends and themes and things like that. And sometimes you don't even need to see the trends. Sometimes just 1 or 2 nights of that data before the Whoop's giving you that big trend is like, oh wow, this thing really did affect my sleep, and I didn't realize, I kind of knew it, but I didn't realize the extent of how it was hurting me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when I had my Whoop, that was probably my favorite thing too, was really quality of sleep, to see like, oh, how well did I sleep, how well did I recover. I did enjoy those things. What I see that's the biggest benefit to our members is one of the things we talk about is moving every day. So not necessarily coming into the gym and crushing yourself every day, but moving every day. And it's cool because specifically the Apple Watch has like gamified like moving, to like connect the rings on the watch. And I think that's really helped our members just get that in their mind. Like, I don't have to come to the gym every day, but just moving every day, connecting those rings is huge for my health.
I agree. I've had plenty of days where I've had that class workout and it's been an intense workout, but overall my strain, or you could use the calorie metric, we'll talk about the downfalls of that later, but overall my strain in calories and things like that were low at the end of the day. And it's like, okay, it really emphasizes that point of like, yes, it's good to get your hour in the gym, but if you're not moving the rest of the day, if you're just sitting at a desk or sitting down the rest of the day, it's not a good day. Like, that's the bare minimum to get the workout. And even that, it's probably better if you would have moved a lot rather than get this really intense thing for 1 hour and then the rest of your 23 hours was really sedentary.
Mm-hmm.
So going back to the sleep, I love the breakdown so basically it gives you like REM sleep and deep sleep, and it tells you like what times, and you can play around with different bedtimes. I really love that, and I think it's been cool with workouts. I've done a little bit of research into the heart rate side of things. So I like getting that heart rate data to see, okay, what was my peak heart rate in this workout? What did I sustain? Was my rest really necessary? Sometimes that rest is more mental than it is physical, and it's like, okay, some days I know my heart rate was really high and I kind of needed that rest, and other days I'm like, oh, my heart rate didn't really get that high in that workout, and I probably could have cut out some of my rest and pushed it a little bit harder. What was contributing to me wanting to take those breaks when I didn't have to?
It's because you were getting healthier. Your heart rate wasn't getting as
That's
high.
true.
Right? That's one of the things with these metrics is like when you first get them and you're first kind of new to fitness, maybe you're new to our gym, it's like the stats are going to be like off the charts, like you're crushing it. And then as you get better, it's going to kind of just not be as exponentially, showing you those results each time, which can be a little defeating, which is one of the drawbacks of wearing them, is like getting too caught up in those metrics as like, was this a good workout or not? Because over time, as you get healthier, you're going to need other metrics to go by to kind of value that workout.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of the potentially like large scale impacts of this technology. So you have the life-saving benefit. A lot of people don't buy one of these because they're like, oh, this thing's going to save my life one day. But there's a lot of potential there. And actually just Googled this before our episode, and like the first link on Google was like top 5 ways like Apple Watch has saved people's lives, and it was like 5 individual stories of people that, one person got in a car accident, they were able to call 911 from their watch, and that's kind of different than what we're talking about. But other people have seen elevated heart rates and realized they were going into cardiac arrest, and they were able to catch it early. Or Apple Watch actually has a feature where it can track impact. It can track what looks like a fall or a car accident, and then if they don't sense any movement in the minutes or hour after that, then they see it as an emergency, and then they kind of have a way of reporting it. So I think that's awesome, that like life-saving benefit of this little thing on your wrist.
It's funny, I read that same article.
Okay.
Like right before we came on, I'm like, let's Google this, and like it's like really cool. Also, Tim Cook, in one of those articles, he was like, I want Apple to be known as a health company, which I thought was really cool. And you can see that. You can see that they're making an impact with like really life-saving stuff. Like people were getting them as gifts, putting them on, and thinking they were defective. And then next thing you know, they're in the emergency room for life-saving surgery. So I just thought those stories were pretty impactful on how important these things could be.
Yeah, I think for me, I kind of have a pretty good 2020 example of how the Whoop kind of can give you an idea of what's happening with your body. And mine was the day after Murph. If you don't know, Murph is an incredibly challenging workout. It's a long workout. So those type of workouts typically show up as a lot of strain on the Whoop. So going into that day, I knew my strain was going to be crazy. It's crazier than it's ever been. And I kind of just imagined the next day the recovery would be plummeted, because just that workout's very hard to recover from in general, which was the case. That's exactly what happened. My recovery was like as low as it's ever been. But the cool thing about the Whoop is you can get tracking for months and weeks at a time. So I'm like, if I do a very hard workout, let's say on a Saturday, Sunday might be a little bit lower in recovery, but usually Monday I'm ready, I'm back into the gym, I'm good to go. My recovery is usually in the green. This given situation, my recovery was even lower the next day. And then my resting heart rate and HRV, which are usually very good, were like not, and I'm like, that's weird. And then Tuesday, I'm like, okay, I'll be good. Even worse. And I'm like, what's happening? And then come to find out, like maybe it was like 2 or 3 days later, we ended up getting COVID tests. Our whole gym did, and I was positive. So although like I didn't have any of like the side effects or anything like that from actual COVID, the Whoop itself kind of told me that I had it. It told me prior to actually getting the test that, hey, like something's not right. Like your heart's doing something not normal. And it kind of sent me all that data beforehand, and then the test actually just kind of layered onto that to prove that it was, and it was confirmed.
That's crazy. And where I want to see like this wearable go is like, so that like Friday night you can start to see like maybe an alert or something where it's like, you know what, maybe you shouldn't do Murph tomorrow. Like it already knows like your system's kind of not up to par, and could actually tell you like, hey, don't do that. Because I know the times that I've gotten sick, it's always like from that like workout or that long day at work that kind of just like pushes you over the edge into that sickness. So to get like a heads up from a wearable, which I know is kind of coming, with all the data they collect. That's really cool to see.
Yeah, potentially it's already there too. I mean, maybe the timing was just off in Austin's sequence. Had Murph been scheduled for that Monday as opposed to that Saturday, he might have been able to see like respiratory rate is something that the Whoop tells you, and it tells you, okay, your average is 14.5 and today you're at 15.5. Either take a recovery day, or maybe it's high enough where like, hey, you might want to go get seen by a doctor. I don't know the exact alerts that something like a Whoop would give you, but I mean, we talked about the life-saving benefits. Maybe you're going to go see your grandma that day, or we're in the holidays right now, and it's like, hey, something's off of my health. I'm going to not do this tough workout. I'm going to stay in quarantine during this time and not see other people that might be at risk if they were to potentially get this sickness. And I think it's, in some cases it's already there. I agree with you, Tony, in that it could get there even further as they start to add more metrics that they track. And what's cool about like what Apple's doing is so much of it is software updates, where like you could have one of the older models and they update a software and now it tracks your the EKG or whatever it is, and it's added into that. So I think that's really interesting and cool, and I think it's the future of healthcare, honestly, future of health insurance especially. You see it in the car market now with what Tesla's doing. Tesla has so many sensors. They have 5 cameras on the car. They have cameras on the driver, and there's you already know you get rewarded in your premiums based on your age with car insurance and how safe of a driver you are. Well, now they, rather than waiting for you to crash to tell you if you're a safe driver or not, they have more predictive ways to see this. And I think that's the future of Apple and health insurance, where you can start to see, okay, you have a low resting heart rate, you hit activity every single day, you're healthy in all these other metrics, like you pay this for health insurance versus someone else who doesn't have those metrics has to pay a lot more. And then also that could feed into the treatment you get, because now you're going to the doctor with a whole book of a story about you versus just like, hey, this is me and this is the symptom I think I have.
Yeah, sign me up for that. Health insurance costs are way too high, and I think I saw that Aetna is actually trying that out, like on a trial basis. They're just kind of like seeing how that would go. But like even with the car thing, it's like you put it in your car and it already comes down. Yeah. You know, so you put that on your wrist. You know, you could be unhealthy. It's just that you're actually tracking your unhealthiness. Your premiums go down. You know, because you're actually just aware.
Yeah.
And you'll hit those less costly visits before that big one hits.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of the potential downfalls with this technology, because we see a lot of good. We think that the future is definitely brighter for these types of things, but there's certainly downfalls with it. So what have you guys seen the downfalls? Tony, you're not even wearing one, so clearly you didn't even, you didn't like enough to keep it on.
Yeah. One of my downfalls is actually like wearing stuff. Like actually put on my wedding ring today. Like, and that's kind of an oddity.
It's a piece of rubber, Tony. It's
yeah, I know. I don't know. I just like my hands to be free.
They're free for $9.99 on Amazon.
I think mine was $3.99. So. You go ahead.
No, that's what I was gonna say. That's one drawback. I think kind of the biggest drawback that I see is people starting to judge their workouts based on what their watch tells them. And there's so many more metrics to whether or not you had a good workout or not, whether you're getting better or not. And I just think, a lot of people kind of tie it to like calories burned. And calories burned kind of gets rewarded with, moderate to high exertion for a long time. So like if you just like stayed on that treadmill, you're just gonna like jump those numbers up, But
I'll give you an example. If I go in a sauna, it elevates my heart rate. I'm literally sitting down, but it can actually register the sauna as more of a workout than like a Fran, if you guys know what Fran is, or anything shorter than 10 minutes. Like we do some short 10-minute sessions, or any type of strength workout that we would do in the gym. Mm-hmm. It's going to register the sauna if I sit in there for 20 minutes as more of a workout than those other things.
Yeah. My biggest downfall is going to be similar to that. It's digging too deep into the numbers before you actually know what they're trying to tell you in the first place. I think we listed it as a positive, but I can also see it being a big negative, which is like gamifying the numbers. The one for the Whoop, the one that most people like, I feel like compare themselves to others with, is the strain. Strain's like the big number on the Whoop, and it's like the strain is literally only tracking basically like your cardiovascular output on a day. So if you went for a 40-mile easy bike ride, it's actually probably going to give you a higher strain than doing a pretty intense 12-minute AMRAP that we would typically do inside of these doors. However, if you understand the numbers good enough, you can still see how those numbers pay off or can affect you later on. So my example would be, let's take that 40-minute just long aerobic piece. In that day, you're probably going to have a much higher strain than you typically would. The next day, you're probably going to have a really good recovery because it didn't really do too much to you in a given day. But if you do something like, like a really heavy bodybuilding session or something that's just like very taxing on like your central nervous system, the strain's not really going to show up. Like, you may spend 2 hours in the gym and get like a 5 strain.
Right.
And to give you guys an example, like a normal workout strain, I'd say is like, I don't know, 9 to 12-ish for most people. That's just a guesstimate. It varies from person to person, but for me, it's probably 9 to 12. If I did like just like a weightlifting session, I would probably get like a 5 or a 6. My heart rate just doesn't elevate that much. I take a lot of rest between my sets. However, the next night, once it starts actually checking your recovery and things like that, it'll take that HRV number into account, and that's kind of where the central nervous system plays into it, and it'll be much lower than it typically would be, which then kind of hurts your recovery output. But if you're chasing the numbers of a strain, and you do something like a very heavy weightlifting session, and you're like, oh, what the heck, I'm only at 9 strain for the day, I need to keep going. Yeah. You're eventually going to burn yourself out, potentially injure yourself. A bunch of different risks come into play when you just focus on one given number instead of looking at the big picture of all the data that they give you. And I think that's the best thing that they do, is they give you so many different data points to look at, which is great, but if you don't spend the time to research and actually look into what the numbers mean, you're kind of just potentially wasting your time or hindering yourself in the long run of performance and health.
Yeah, just plain and simple, at least the Whoop specifically, I think the Apple Watch is similar, but the Whoop does not reward strength training, and it does not reward peak intensity. It rewards sustained intensity. So when you do something, if you were to do, running's a good example. If you were to do 400 meter repeats or 800 meter repeats, everyone who's done that before knows that's one of the most challenging workouts you could possibly do. But if you only did 4 to 6 of those, the Whoop would be like, that's an okay day. Like, it might not even register as a workout unless you go in and say, no, I worked out for the last hour. Like, I've had really hard workouts in our gym that didn't even register because it wasn't long enough, it wasn't sustained enough. Yet if I add a core WOD to the end and it sort of sustains that heart rate for another 8 to 10 minutes, now it looks like that workout was so much harder, when like the core WOD was, like, we all know core WODs are tough, but it's not like the thing that makes or breaks your day. It's really what you gave in that section prior to that. But if you just extend it out that little bit, now it feels like this amazing workout that Whoop registered. Or another example would be like, if you go and want to build your strength and you go and you're doing heavy back squats and you're doing strict pull-ups and you're doing ring dips, like, these are tough movements. They take a lot out of you. But if you take the appropriate rest between sets to get stronger at those things, it, again, probably won't register at all. And even if someone, just to kind of clarify this, even if you're someone who wants to lose weight and burn calories, the other thing that it's not tracking is the hormonal changes, the metabolism changes that do affect your calorie burn throughout the rest of the day, but Whoop and Apple Watch is not going to register that, right? So if you do a heavy strength training session, you're going to burn so many more calories for the next 48 hours that are just untracked. If you go out for a 30-minute jog, you're going to burn a ton of calories in those 30 minutes, and then at times you're going to see the metabolism actually drop off and go lower than it was prior to your baseline. Whereas whenever we do strength training and intensity, our metabolism is above baseline for 24 to 48 hours, and that's the missing benefit of those sessions, is the after effects.
Yeah. I think a pretty crazy example, the highest strain I've ever had on the Whoop was our beach workout day. So the beach workout wasn't that crazy. I mean, I don't think it was that hard of a workout. But as soon as we were done with the beach workout, we played a bunch of different random games. I played sand volleyball, I played football, I played spike ball. I was just generally moving for probably 4 to 5 hours. And I think when I got home that night, my strain was at like 18 and a half or 19, something like that, which was by far my highest strain. And that's like including like Murph and Glenn and workouts like that are like much harder.
Yeah.
But if I were like a number chaser, I would be like, oh, I could probably do more. Like my strain's pretty low. And then the next day when it kind of contract the rest of the remaining numbers, that you can kind of get a full story or a better story of.
And one other element there is the sun. You go into a beach workout, it was only a 20-minute AMRAP, I think we did that day. But chances are, before you even walked out to the beach, the sun's already getting you a little warm, a little sweaty. It's starting to kind of elevate that heart rate enough where the Whoop's starting to see, hey, there's something coming on. By the time we're starting the warm up, you're already registering as a workout, even though if you were to do that in this environment, because you're not sweating necessarily, or it's not as hot out, that it's not in that registration process yet.
can't handle the beach.
Yeah, it was just the
St.
sand.
Louis
Yeah.
blood.
So hot.
Yeah, it's funny, when we were quarantined over the spring, summer, I was working out with Coach Jack a lot, like in the gym, separated, but we were doing work in the gym, and he like said like that he actually had, we were laying floor, and that was like his highest strain that he'd ever seen. It was just like laying floor versus like we did like the Chief, and like that didn't even get up there.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Too fast.
Yeah, and there's a positive in that too, because like what you did that day was such a good day. Like you're using your fitness outside, you're doing all these things, so that's not a bad thing that it registered that as a great day. The problem is when it starts to cause you to devalue the more intense work, or start to, because your intense work or your strength training didn't register, you're trying to collect more and more of these workouts in a given day. Think about collecting movement, not workouts. Maybe that's the best way to kind of distinguish. Like walking is always good. If you walk like 10 hours a day, that's amazing for you. I think walking is one of the most underrated things. People don't do enough of it. But it's when we're starting to go, oh, I need to get that 30-minute jog in today because I didn't register, even though you've already done a really good session that morning. Like, no, you don't need to do that. But yes, move and stretch and do these things, but don't necessarily think that you have to get your heart rate up for it to be a successful day.
I think what you just said is a pretty cool example as well, where you said Coach Jack's highest strain was from laying floor. I think people who have like laborious jobs can really use that too, to avoid like potentially causing injury to themselves. Like if you're like a carpenter, or you're someone who does construction and you're working all day long, like I can only imagine like what your daily strain looks like. And then you come in here and do a, just as intense type workout. Like there may be times where you can listen to that a little bit more and be like, okay, this was actually a really hard day. I'm not feeling 100%. Maybe I don't have to go 100% in the gym. Whereas I do still think it's a great positive to move and do something and sweat a little bit. It can kind of give you an idea of how much that's actually taking a toll on your body.
Yeah, I think that's big. Yeah, and I think kind of to that point is like, we're trying to like listen to these devices, but also listen to our bodies.
Yeah.
Like first and foremost, we have to listen to our bodies and like how we feel. So like when we wake up and Whoop says we're like not recovered, but we're like, no, I feel pretty good. Like I want to go. Like maybe you do want to go. Yeah. Like and you shouldn't stop yourself because your watch told you shouldn't move today. Like you really should listen to your body. Take the day off when you need it, or get that workout when you feel like you need it.
Yeah.
So maybe you guys can speak to like waking up and working out or not working out with.
I think context matters. So it's like if you ate pretty good the day before, you're not super stressed, maybe you did work out 2 or 3 days in a row, didn't drink alcohol, like you've done some things right, you slept pretty good, and then it tells you you're under recovered. Like I don't think you need to listen to that and say, oh, I'm not going to work out today. But I think there's also people that convince themselves, oh, I feel good, shut up, Whoop, like you're lying to me, and then they'll just kind of bust through. So I think just the context matters, and you have to look at the whole context of what has your life been. How do I really feel, or do I feel like I need that adrenaline rush, and am I just digging a deeper hole?
I think Danielle and I had a really good example. We went to Disney last weekend for 4 days, and it was kind of like a 4-day do whatever we want. Like we didn't track food, we didn't do anything. We just ate what we wanted whenever we wanted. Crazy, right?
Your heart rate just is so high.
Oh my gosh, my resting heart rate's typically like around 40 to 45, somewhere in that range. And I think when I got back and I actually started looking at it again, it was like at 60, 61, somewhere in there. My HRV, which is typically like around 200, was down to like 100. Like it just made like huge leaps. But to go off of what you just said, if I would have just went off of what my Whoop said, my recovery was like 25%. So it's like, oh, should I not go work out?
You should have not gone to Disney. You should have stayed in the hotel.
Well, for my long-term health, that probably would have been the best decision. Yeah, but yeah, like that's where you can't really listen to the numbers. Because like, okay, at what point do I get back to actually moving and exercising and eating properly, or am I just going to listen to what this recovery number is telling me? Because if that's the case, then I'm just not going to work out today, might not get to work out tomorrow. It's like, no, like you've got to flip the switch, like start paying attention to your food again. And for me personally, the food is probably one of the biggest dictators of what my recovery is going to be the next day. I've noticed, and it gives you a lot of chances to input information, like how'd that workout feel, like what did you eat today? It's weird things like that, and it kind of creates this weekly assessment and monthly assessment for you. And for me, I found that the food that I intake is the biggest variable to changing that recovery number for me. Which I kind of found out in Disney because I just walked the whole time. It's not like I was like doing strenuous exercise or anything, but I wasn't eating good at all. I know like the night before we came back, I had like Mexican food. I had Cold Stone, a big Cold Stone, not even just like a normal Cold Stone. And then I think my recovery.
You gotta have it. You gotta have it.
They gotta have it, exactly. Yeah. So for me, it's like, okay, as soon as I get back into sweating and moving and doing my normal routine, eating better, my number went back to the green in like a day's time. So, but yeah, like that, just to play off your point, like you can't just go off of a watch or any kind of piece of technology right now. It's just not at the level that it can read every possible thing. I'm sure one day it'll get there, but right now it's not 100%.
Yeah, I think in an ideal world, you're using this to fine-tune your connection with your own body, not to rely on an outside thing. So like, if in Tony's case, he uses the Whoop for 3 months and then he stops using it, rather than feeling like he's less in tune with his body now, he's actually more in tune because he's like, that actually really helped me understand what actually was a good night's sleep and what wasn't. It helped me understand what a day of true activity is versus a day of a hard workout and 23 sedentary hours. So I have a better understanding now, and now I don't need to rely on the watch. I might still choose to wear it for the life-saving benefits or some of these other benefits, but I actually feel more in tune, not less in tune with it.
Yeah.
All right. Let's wrap it up there. Do you have anything else?
Just kind of like on our specific programming that we do here, I feel like the watches have a hard time picking it up accurately.
For sure.
Because I feel like, if you were like road biking every day of your life, it's gonna start to like know what you're doing every day. You're putting that in, it's reading it, it's tracking other bikers, and it's just getting smarter. I feel like we're so constantly varied in here in what we do in strength training, in cardio, and all these different aspects of fitness, that it's going to be harder for, wearables to assess the functional fitness space, like that high intensity workout space.
Well, if we were using this as the end all be all and we were playing to it, then every workout would be 25 to 35 minutes. We'd have a good warm up, a good extended cool down, maybe a core watt in there, and every workout would be right in that range. But we know that it's not like a direct input and output. You have the body's a very complex system, and you have to challenge it in unique ways all the time, and that's what creates adaptation and growth and weight loss and muscle and all these different things. And really, the constantly varied nature of what we're trying to accomplish doesn't fit in this perfect Whoop or Apple Watch calorie or strain reward system. So, yeah.
Perfectly said.
All right, we'll end on that. Thanks for joining us, guys. Hopefully get a Whoop or Apple Watch for Christmas and you can relate to what we're talking about here. See you on the next one.